So today I'm going to be trying to restore the headlights. This side you can see is really hazy. And then if you look at this side, it looks a lot better. Now the clear coat that I used for this side wasn't actually that good, so that didn't turn out as well as I'd like it to. But it is still a lot clearer and a lot brighter than the other side. So at the end of this, the headlight will go from looking like this to like this. So in order to do this, I'm going to need a couple tools. First off, a spray bottle because we're going to be wet sanding it. And then obviously sandpaper, 400 grit, 800 grit, 2000 grit. And then microfiber towel cloth to dry everything off. Isopropyl alcohol to clean it before we use the clear coat. Tape to tape everything off, scissors to cut tape, and the plastic bag. And maybe some paper to cover the surroundings so that we don't get clear coat around it. So before we start, we can actually kind of gauge how it'll turn out just by spraying some water over this and wiping it dry. So after doing this, it should turn out a little bit like this, where it's clear here, whereas before it was hazy. Let's go ahead and mask everything off. Alright, so now that we taped it off, we're going to start wet sanding. So in the beginning, you can go whatever way you want, but in the end, last step, you want to go side to side. And because this is pretty bad, I'm going to use 400 grit and you can go pretty hard. Alright, so now it's time to do the 600 grit. Again, with the sandpaper, like this. Alright, and finally it's time to do the 2000 grit. And this is going to make it a little bit clearer, and then the clear coat will make it opaque. Alright, so now that I'm done with that, the last step is to get some rubbing alcohol and clean it off. So somehow I lost some of my footage, but basically I put the rubbing alcohol onto my microfiber towel and wiped down the headlight a little bit. Then I decided to use a plastic bag to cover the headlight and the surrounding area so I don't get overspray over it. So I ended up using paper because all my plastic bags had holes in them, but this took me a while to do, and that also means that now this is more dry. So I'm going to go over it one more time with alcohol, and then after that go over with the first layer of clear coat. Just put some alcohol on clean towel. And I'm making sure that I get all the edges. Alright, I'm going to give that a couple seconds before I spray it with clear coat. Now it's time to use the clear coat. So first, shake it a lot. And then what I'm going to do is light layer over the whole thing, going side to side. It already looks a lot better, and we're going to let it sit for 5 minutes. Alright, 5 minutes later, it's time for a second coat. Once again, shake the bottle, and go. So looking at this now, I definitely know that I sprayed a couple parts way too much, and that might have led to what happened next. But anyway, I just let it sit for 10 minutes before doing the last coat. Alright, so it's time for the last coat, and I messed up. Last time I had a bunch of overspray here, and I decided to try and wipe it off, and I actually messed it up even more, so I shouldn't have done that. And I also might have gone overboard with the sanding, because there's a lot of cracks here. Didn't happen on the other headlight. We'll see what happens though. Nothing I can do about that now. Yeah, I think the cracks will stay, but it's clearer and hopefully it doesn't break. So here's how it finally turned out. I wasn't too happy about the fact that it cracked, so I actually went back and decided to redo it the next day. So an hour and 15 minutes later, I finally got all the clear coat off, and it's ready for clear coat again. So it's been exactly 5 minutes since I did the first coat, and you can tell that it cracked again. So I think this time I'm just gonna leave it. Nothing I can do about that. Got too late, so I forgot to film the rest of it, but here's the final product. I realize now I probably didn't crack again, but rather I probably didn't take enough of the clear coat off the second time. Doing my first headlight, I was definitely a lot more cautious and did it a lot better compared to this one, but I think it'll still hold up, and as long as you don't look too closely, you can't notice the cracks. I'm still happy I did it, and just want to document it. So here's a look at the before on the left side and the right side, And here's a look of the car just from the front. And this is the result. I definitely made many mistakes, but the results are not bad, especially for someone who has no idea what he's doing.